Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about R.L. Stine's Pumpkinhead. This movie came out in 2025 and it's on Tubi to watch for free. It was directed by Jim Gerald, and I was really shocked and surprised when I heard about this movie because I was on YouTube flipping around and I saw the trailer that said R.L. Stine Pumpkinhead. I'm all like, wait, are they talking about the haunting hour Pumpkinhead? No. But yes, but no. So this is a standalone movie that is based off of R.L. Stine's The Haunting Hour Pumpkinhead. I'm all like, holy crap, this is like awesome and stuff. Like they're adapting his works of art from what was it now? The Haunting Hour, I believe, wasn't a series of books, but I believe there was a series of shorts, I think. And so this is awesome and everything. And so when I watched it, it has that kiddie vibe, but it also has that mature vibe to it. And I'm just kind of like, it's similar to what Netflix is doing to R.L. Stine's Fear Street. And so I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting for this to come out and stuff, because it was 2 weeks I saw the trailer and stuff, and probably not a lot of R.L. Stine fans know about this. And doing something like this, making a standalone movie to his works of art, is something that really makes me happy because of the simple fact, this is how I always wanted Goosebumps to be. When they made the first Goosebumps theatrical movie, it was basically Goosebumps meets Jumanji. And I was surprised at how good that movie was, but even though it was Goosebumps, it was just Goosebumps Jumanji. And it wasn't based on no singular book. Then the second one came out, and that one was just okay. Still, its own standalone thing, not similar to that of the books. Then Disney Plus came around and made that YA teen drama Goosebumps series that was just a teen drama but crammed in some of the books, and I did not like that. I did not like that whatsoever. And I was so thankful that show got canceled, which I knew it would and everything. And so, when it also comes to R.L. Stine's properties, his mostly ghostly stuff, that gets adapted into movies, but that's more kid focused and stuff. And so I can never get into those stuff. So when it comes to R.L. Stine stuff, I mostly stick to television shows and not so much to the movies, because the movies are either completely different from his works of art, or they're more kid-oriented content type stuff, And so the fact that this is something free to watch is great, because I hate Netflix and everything. And Tubi really is trying to step up their game to be a competitor when it comes to their original movies. But like I said before, they got a long ways to go because they're getting better. But some of their movies aren't that great, but for the most part, they're decent. The problem with Tubi movies is the acting is normally never good, and the stories could be fleshed out a bit better. So they are improving and everything. And yes, if you do look this up on Tubi, there's technically two Pumpkinhead. There's the actual Pumpkinhead movie from back in the 80s and stuff, and there is of course the R.L. Stine one. And a couple of other R.L. Stine stuff is on Tubi. The original Goosebumps is there. They've just now added the Nightmare Room. Technically, the Haunting Hour is on there, but it's in Spanish dub for some bizarre reason. And so, I remember that television show episode called Pumpkinhead. I reviewed it on my channel. Go watch that. And for the most part, for the television episode, I enjoyed it, but I was a little irritated at the same time. I had mixed feelings because of the simple fact. While it was creepy, and it was creepy too, like it was good in a creepy kind of way, my only problem was one, Frankie Jonas, I think his name was. I did not like his acting. This was a time when I really did not like the Jonas Brothers. They was just getting on my nerves with the purity rings and Disney Channel and little girls screaming them and everything. But after, as time has passed and they've gotten away from Disney, I like one of them a bit more. Like, there's one I don't really know of, and there's that one that was on Scream Queens. I forget his name. It might be Nick. I'm not sure. I like his music and I liked his acting on that. Now, the one who married, I think her name is Sophie Turner, I think, the Game of Thrones actress. I don't know how I feel about him because of how weird that marriage and the divorce was and everything. So, whatever with that. And as for Frankie, I could care less about him because I don't never hear nothing about him no more. But like his acting in that episode was just horrid. He was a little kid actor, and it just wasn't good. And then, but that's not the only thing I didn't like about it. The only thing I didn't also like about it is that while it was creepy, and while it kept you on the edge of your seat, and while the ending was phenomenal, my only problem, really and truly, with that episode was there was no action. There was like no thrills, no adventure. Like, it was like it was a weird episode because normally in Goosebumps and in the Haunting Hour, there's some type of action going on. You know what I'm saying? Where you're trying to defeat whatever it is that's like the monster of the week, and there was like nothing, and it was just kind of like, what the heck? It's just a bunch of creepy stuff and everything. So I was disappointed in that, and then they came up with a sequel, but the sequel didn't have the original cast, and like it was a new cast, and it was just kind of odd and boring, but I did like it for its creepy factor. And so the television show actually came out 14 years ago. And in my opinion, it still mostly holds up, other than the fact there wasn't that much excitement or action and stuff. So I'm Jim Gerald. I've never heard of them before. They're non-binary and part of the LGBT community, which is cool to think that, they directed an R.L. Stine, like, movie. They also have directed other stuff on Tubi. And in the movie, I noticed something. Like, the kids were watching a movie and there were drag queens in it. And it was like a horror movie. And I'm like, what movie are they watching? Because normally in like a movie, when somebody else is watching another movie, it's like a real movie and stuff. So after looking up the director's like portfolio and everything, they directed a movie called Slay, which is kind of like a slasher movie with drag queens. And so that's what they was watching. I bet you anything, some people are gonna complain about that. Oh, it's woke and everything. Like, get over it. Now, this movie feels like a mature Goosebumps, more so like than the Disney Plus series. See, the Disney Plus series just felt like a teen drama, a mature teen drama. This, however, does try to capture that feeling of like Goosebumps, but not the feeling of the Haunting Hour. See, the Haunting Hour was more of a mature version of Goosebumps, similar to that of like the Disney Plus show, but better. Well, until it started to suck. I still say the first two seasons are the best, but after that, it just went downhill because of the simple fact. One of those things, it was one of those things that where they started to try to teach you a lesson in child's horror and teen horror, which don't make no sense. It's like you don't need a lesson of the day. It's kind of how cartoons were back when I was growing up. At the very end, you'll have like that PSA type thing where they'll teach you how to cross the street and not talk to strangers and stuff. That's kind of what they was doing throughout the entire episode of a lot of teen horror stuff. Creeped Out, The Haunting Hour. And it was just like, I bet it was the parents group that made them do that. And so the networks had to like enforce that into every teen horror thing there was. And it just became irritating after a while. And so The Haunting Hour was a good show that was more elevated than Goosebumps and had its own style. And it wasn't, Goosebumps was more brighter, it was a little cheesier, it had more popping music and everything, cooler locations. But this was kind of like, hey, what if Goosebumps was more realistic type thing, you know? And so this movie kind of harpens back to that older Goosebumps style. It's brightly colored. There's a little cheesiness in there, especially with like the acting and stuff. I actually prefer the cast of the television show over this one. They just had more of a, well, except for Frankie Jonas and everything. But I do prefer the television cast more than this. Also, it had Casey Rowell in there, and I like her as an actress and stuff. And it's just like the acting in this movie is not bad. Like, don't get me wrong, that's not the thing. It's not bad. It's just I preferred those characters that I saw. Now, when it comes to that of the Pumpkinhead thing, the short, I don't know which version, either the movie or the television show, is the definitive version. I have no idea. I've never read the book or short it's based off on, and both the movie and the television show differ greatly in everything. It's still a family. It's still a boy, a bad boy, who steals a pumpkin from Palmer's farm, and Palmer is still in this thing, and the pumpkins do come alive and everything. But other little things are like switched and changed around. So I don't know who wrote the real version and stuff. I'm gonna try my best to look online if I can see if I can find the short or the book and see what the synopsis is about. And now the runtime is about 90 minutes. And like, I'm gonna try my best to screen capture a bunch of like images from the movie, but it's gonna be hard because Tubi is being difficult at this point in time. Like, the problem with Tubi now is that in the past, like, you know, the title of like whatever it is you're watching would come on whenever you pause it and stuff like that. So that was always irritating. However, now they have ads that come all throughout the screen whenever you like pause it. So I might not be able to like get the images that I want to show, that I want to. So I think this is a pretty good movie in my opinion. Like, it's no Fear Street, you know what I'm saying? It's on par with that of like, say, Goosebumps from the 90s, but in a more modern take. You know, like, there was some adventure, there was some creepiness. The third climax act was really good. The twist at the end, while good, I don't really know how I feel about it. There's just one major problem I have with this movie, and that's the humor from this one character and this one character only. It's like, yeah, I get it. The 90s was cheesy and so was Goosebumps, but that's the thing, it was the 90s. A lot of things in the 90s were cheesy. Plus I was a teen back then, so it didn't really bother me. It's just, I don't know if it's the actor's acting or what was written for him, but the moment he appeared, it just completely took me out of the movie and kind of just drained me and everything. And every time he wasn't on screen, it got better and stuff. It's just, they didn't need to add this type of humor, that slapstick, Marvel, Disney, baby humor to it. You know what I'm saying? They didn't need that, but they added that for, I guess, the kids or whatever. But it's like, this is Tubi. How many kids watch Tubi? You know what I'm saying? And then The Haunting now was 14 years ago, and Goosebumps was like 30 years ago. So all these people who watch that stuff are like adults now. So I don't, and it has a mature take to it because there's a severed head, there's some cussing, there's some gun shooting and stuff like that. So, like, and talking about getting drunk, like, so there's some adult themes in here. So I don't know why they're gonna add that humorous part for the kiddos and everything. Just let it be for the adults. Now, there were certain things about this movie I both liked and disliked, and some things I found interesting. So, since this is free on Tubi and you can watch yourself, I'm not going to go into detail and the detail and the detail, summarizing the entire plot. I'll just instead, like, say the things I liked and the things I didn't. Now, when I say I don't like the twist at the end, there are technically three twists at the end. The very last one is my favorite of them all. The other two, I don't know. Like, I'm starting to warm up to them a little bit more now. But, like, I'm still not sure. But, that last twist, that was a gut punch. I did not expect that at all. Now, like I said before, I've never read, like, the book of short that this is based off of. But it appears that this seems to be a combination of the Haunting Hour Pumpkinhead and the Haunting Hour that Scarecrow episode. All I remember about that Scarecrow episode is that this brother-sister duo had some crops. They weren't doing good. And the girl did something to help like protect the crops, and it caused the scarecrow to like come alive or something like that. It was a weird episode and it never made no sense to me, and I can't really remember much about it other than it starred Bailey Madison, and that was like her third time on the Haunting Hour. However, it's also very similar to the Goosebump episode, The Scarecrow Walks at Night, because they say in the movie Palmer has this magical type book, and that, he brought like, he did some type of ritual spell and it helped like, do something for his crops, and it's also what causes the memory wipe spell to where it's the soil and everything. That way, whenever fruits and vegetables are grown on the soil and the adults eat it, it causes them to forget the kids that are like missing. And in order to keep the crops like, preserved and everything, it has to take a kid. And so like, this is why kids go missing. And then the Scarecrow Walks at Night, it's where that one person found that book and brought the scarecrows to life and, stuff like that. Okay, so on the wiki fandom page of the Haunting Hour that the Pumpkinhead episode was based off of, and it seems that there's always a different group of kids in each iteration. And the actual story is based off of, it's two brothers, but these brothers are named Mike and Andrew. And they have a friend named Liz. And so the family goes to a pumpkin farm, and there's a woman who tells them to stay away from Palmer's and everything. And so similar to that of like the television show, the bad boy Mike decides he's gonna prank Palmer. So Mike got turned into a pumpkin head, and apparently a friend of his, and the body looks more like vines or something like that. So yeah, it's still like each story that you like get is pretty much the same. There's a bad boy, he pranks Palmer, he tries to steal like a pumpkin and gets turned into a pumpkin head himself. But it just seems like the three kids always have different names. Sometimes they're related, sometimes they're not. So like I said before, there are a lot of differences between like the movie and the television show. In the television show, it dealt with three siblings, that of Dave, Scott, and Allie. Their mom is always away at work, leaving them at home by themselves and leaving Allie in charge because she is the older. In the movie, it's no longer a three kid sibling thing. Now it's like two brothers, Sam and Finn, and they have a neighbor who they're friends with. And so these are completely new characters. The only character that is the same is Palmer. Now, both Palmers are played by different actors and stuff. The one from the TV show is just straight up creepy and everything. And I mean, that man is chilling and stuff. The one from the television show is Eric Kingsley Side. And that man was just like, you feared him. There was something creepy about that man. And like, there was just something creepy about him. The one from the movie is Kevin McNulty. And he's a creepy as well, but not as creepy as the other dude. Now, I've seen Kevin in multiple stuff throughout the decades and stuff. I remember this dude was in the first two Fantastic Four movies. He was the doorman and stuff. Now, both Palmers are completely different. The one in the television show was feared throughout the neighborhood, and people always stayed off his property because he was a grumpy old man that they feared. The one in the movie, however, is worshipped like a god. There's even people who come to his farm and they literally close their eyes and pray like they're in some kind of cult. And this is because, like, and I hate when modern day movies and television shows do this. The young characters are all like, oh yeah, back in the old people days, like, you know, the year 2003. That's not that long ago. Yes, it's about 20 years ago, but still, they're making it sound like it's ancient. And so, like, apparently the crops were all dead and, you know, people didn't have much food to eat. But then all of a sudden Palmer came and, like, you know, his plants were like the best and he fed folks and they didn't starve. So they worship him like he's a god. Also, Palmer's not evil and not a mutant. In the television show, he was very much evil, but you never knew why exactly he was evil. Just a simple fact, he was evil. And with it being a 20-minute show, they really couldn't explain it. In the movie, however, we hear the son, Palmer's son, who is Rusty, tell the story of how his dad had this book, you know, created like the magic pumpkin to, like, you know, heal the soil so everybody can have crops and this and that. And so this is, of course, you know, why he's like worship, but they don't know it's because of a magic book. And so it turns out it's a twist that where Palmer's actually not evil, and he had no idea that growing this magic pumpkin would do this every year. He had no idea it would sacrifice a child every year. There's a person who gave him the book and told him it's like a miracle and stuff like that. And so it's just weird that Palmer is actually just a nice guy. He's just a grumpy old man. The personalities of the siblings are completely different. In the television show, the older sister had more of that she's a cool kind of vibe and doesn't want to be bothered with her brothers because her well, not the oldest brother, but he's like a few years younger than her. The middle child, he's irritating and she can't stand him and doesn't want to be bothered by him and just wants to hang out with her friends. But like I said before, she's not in the movie, or at least no character based off her. Now, the middle child in the television show, he's the bad boy and everything. He's bored, he's irritating. Like, you know, he wants to go trick-or-treating, but his mom won't let him because kids are missing and stuff like that. And so he decides when they to steal a pumpkin from Palmer's, like, you know, patch, and like convinces his siblings to do the same. And then, like, all of a sudden some weird stuff starts happening. He likes to pull pranks, but then he went missing and everything. And the youngest boy in the show, he's just the goober and everything. And so it's now reversed. In the movie, the older son is like the more reliable one, nice one. He's a goody two shoes and everything. And the younger boy, he's the brat who goes snooping around, stealing the pumpkin and, and stuff like that. In the television show, kids don't really go trick-or-treating no more because kids end up going missing. In the movie, they still very much go trick-or-treating. Now, as to why the kid goes missing in the movie, it's slightly more different than that of the show, but yet it's still similar. Still, once again, a pumpkin is stolen. Still, once again, the older brother goes missing, which causes the other sibling to go and look for them. But this time around, like I said before, it's the younger brother who steals the pumpkin, but now it's the older brother that, has to return the pumpkin and ends up going missing, which causes the sibling, the younger one, and his friend to go looking for him. One huge difference in the movie from the television show is that the scarecrows are alive. The scarecrows weren't even prominent in the television show, but in the movie, they are very much alive and very much dangerous. Another difference is when a person that's a pumpkinhead reverts back to a human. In the show, it is believed that when the kids are rescued, they just turn back into normal kids. We never see this, but it's implied. In the movie, however, it's completely different. It's like you're nothing but a head, and you're a head and you're a pumpkin. You never turn into an actual walking monster and stuff. In the Pumpkinhead show, it was actual people walking around with a pumpkin on their head. And the movie is just a head of a pumpkin. And when you revert back to your human form, you're just a severed head. Another strange difference is that when a kid goes missing, people tend to forget they exist. This never happened in the television show. So when the older brother goes missing, the mom straight up forgets she even had an older son. And the whole disappearance thing, it seems to only affect adults. Kids and teenagers remember who these missing people are, but once they turn 18 or over 18, they just completely forget this person ever existed. Because Sam, he showed his mom a picture of a family picture of theirs with Finn in it. And we, the audience, can see the picture. But in the moment the mom saw it, Finn's picture image completely disappeared from the picture. Another huge difference is in the movie, there's a Rusty character that was not prominent in the show. The Rusty character is a person that, tried to warn the adults of the missing teens and kids, but nobody would listen to them. Things I liked in this movie. I liked the darker tone. They use curse words. You see a teenage boy's severed head in a bag and it rolls out onto the ground. That is some dark stuff right there. You know what I'm saying? And I also appreciate the chase scene in the beginning because like I said before, the television show didn't really have no action and stuff. But I will give it up for the television show. The television show felt more creepy. You didn't know what to expect in the television show because you just had Palmer, his farm, and a bunch of pumpkins everywhere. So you didn't really get the idea something creepy might be going on until they stole it. And then once they stole it, you had more creepy imagery. You had a tooth that looked like a pumpkin seed inside the pumpkin. When the pumpkin came in, Pumpkinhead person came and stole the brother, it left behind this type of goo and pumpkin seed that looks like guts and blood and everything. That was really cool imagery. Plus, there was Palmer's just overall creepiness. Like, you didn't understand what the world was up with this dude. In the movie, it's a bit more fleshed out. Like in the movie, Palmer is just like, he's not so much creepy, he's more like an irritated older man. But right from the beginning, you actually see the monsters that are like chasing like that boy. So you know straight up there's something creepy and going into bumping in the night. And so like when it comes to that the pumpkin that what's his name first finds, it's a very unusual looking pumpkin with bumps on it. It has like vines sticking out of it, and it's on a giant patch of like look like green stuff, like leaves or like vines or something. So you know it gives you this weird, unusual feeling because it's like something's like odd with this thing, you know. And then all of a sudden you get the CGI face of like a monster kind of thing coming out of like the pumpkin. And the boy is just kind of like, he's a little phased by that, but not really. But then decides, hey, I still want this anyway, even though it has a creepy monster face to it that appeared and vanished. So then he takes like, I think like a machete, he starts chopping the vine off it so he can get it. And it's just kind of like, why would you want this thing? And a weird monstery face appeared from it and disappeared. Like you think somebody would be more scared and try to like run off or something like that, you know? And so like then after that, the pumpkin starts to rot on the outside. I do like that imagery and stuff. However, I would appreciate it if the pumpkin didn't like have a monstery face appear and disappear. Like leave that towards like the middle or the end or the movie. The coloration of like the movie, like it kind of has this weird neon kind of color, not that bright. It's similar to Fear Street, but Fear Street was very neon glowing. I don't know why they keep giving R.L. Stine this his movies this like brightly colored neon glow. It kind of works for this movie though, 'cause it kind of gives you that goosebumps feel, but without the grain to like the film and everything, you know? And it still comes off creepy nevertheless. However, I do appreciate the television show, but just keeping a normal like coloration filter to it. You know, like there was nothing fancy about it. It was just like normal looking like darkness. One thing I love was the look of the scarecrow. He just looked amazing. Granted, it does look like a guy wearing a suit. They could have made it more, a little bit more viney, have some more stuff sticking out, but it was so cool him chasing around Sam around like the field, and then he did like this upside down crab walk type thing as he's chasing him, kind of like the Exorcist type thing, and that was so cool. Now, one thing I love was the second twist at the end when it came to that of Sam. So, after the spell got reversed, the plants had a hold of him, right? And so his brother came back and choked out the sheriff. And when the spell was over with, like, you know, the scarecrow died, the spell got so reversed that all the parents in town started to remember their missing kids. And so when Sam went to go see how his brother and mother was doing, they did not remember him at all. Like, and it's apparently because the plants had a hold of him when the spell was getting reversed. So somehow it kind of reversed the spell and made them forget about him. So now every adult who's eaten the plants in town, who once forgotten their kids that went missing, now forgot Sam. And this is like traumatic because Sam, he's always felt like his mom and brother just don't care about him. Like he's really sad because I don't know what happened to his father exactly. He's either dead or he walked off. And so because of that, it caused Sam to become like a bad boy. And he always feels like his mom and his brother are always doing things together and they don't want him around. And so, like, now he has been completely forgotten, even to the point that they drove off and just left him there and stuff. And so now he's gonna presumably live with like Rusty. And of course, Becca, she's not gonna live with her father no more. It says she's gonna live with her mom, but she might go live with Rusty as well. So this would be a great sequel if they make a sequel, but what are they really gonna do now? Because the vines took the book and put it back on the ground and it evaporated and everything. So this was like a dark ending and stuff, which is so on par with the haunting hour. The haunting hour sometimes will end on a dark note. Now, things I did not like about the movie. Now, in the movie, the neighbor girl, she is the daughter of the sheriff. And so she's Asian, and the father is white. So, it's an interracial like family. However, my frustration with modern day like movies and television shows, and I've said this before, is I hate when they have an interracial family and the only parent you see is the white parent and stuff. You never see the person of color that helped make that child. And I hate when they do this because they do this crap on purpose. It's never by like a weird coincidence. It's never by mistake. It's always on purpose. And it's because, whether it's Hollywood or North Hollywood, which is like, Canada or Britain or whatever, you know what I'm saying? They always feel that the more people of color you have on screen is gonna cause like a white audience not to want to tune in. They feel like a white audience does not want to see that. And this is true to an extent because you see all the hatred lately that comes with every time a diverse person is on television or in a movie. People are always complaining. They don't even have to race bend nobody or gender bend nobody. The moment there's a person of color on screen or the moment there's a woman on screen, there's always somebody complaining or crying and moaning and stuff. And so this really irritates me because it's kind of like, why not just make her dad Asian, the sheriff dude, you know what I'm saying? They didn't have to make him white because this entire movie is white. And she is the only person of color to have any real screen time and everything. And so if you weren't gonna make her dad Asian, then at least bring in like, have her mom be in the movie or something. Like it really frustrates me. Every time there's like a biracial or mixed person, it's always the white parent that's there on screen and the person of color that made them is completely and always missing. For the most part, there are times where you do see both on screen, but it's very, very rare. Another problem I have with this movie is, and it's like she does have a mother, because at the very end of the movie, when it turns out her dad is the bad guy and everything, she said literally she's gonna go live with mom. So it's kind of like, I hate when Hollywood does this crap, man. It's like they don't want to like offend certain people, so they don't want to show certain people of color like on screen. Like if you're gonna make an interracial family, show the actual interracial family. Don't show most of them. Is the lack of diversity in itself. One thing about R.L. Stine properties is that you really don't see that many people of color, and I talked about that before in the Goosebumps show, where like they filmed in Canada and you will rarely see a person of color. And like it changed a little bit in the Nightmare Room, but then in the Haunting Hour, once again it was mostly a predominantly white cast with only few people of color. It really wasn't until like R.L. Stine Just Beyond and the Goosebumps on Disney Plus that they started bringing in more people of color. And also Fear Street, they start bringing in more people of color. And so when it comes to this cast, like I said before, the neighbor girl, she's Asian. But then there's a boy who's running in the beginning of the movie. Now, the beginning of the movie is very, very cool. He's running through, like, at night doing like the pumpkin patch and outside and stuff. He's being chased down by what looks like a scarecrow and everything. Now, I didn't know who he was at that time. But then when I found out who he is, I just got completely frustrated. So the actor, the character's name is Terrified Teen, and that's how he's credited. And so the actor is actually Dominic Marici and everything. Now, you might not be too familiar with that name, but I recognize this dude. I believe he's Afro-Latino. And I recognize him from the second season of the rebooted Are You Afraid of the Dark? The one that has to do with the Shadow Man. Now, that second season of the rebooted show was phenomenal. It was the best out of all three of the rebooted, seasons and stuff. It was very dark. It was very creepy. And I'm surprised that was a teen show on Nickelodeon. That's just how good it was. And Dominic was one of the main stars of the show. He was a little kid at that time. And he's Afro-Latino, like I said before. And so, like, at least I believe he's Afro-Latino. I don't think he's Asian and black, but I know he has black in him. And I think Latino also. And so, like, he did a pretty good job acting in that show. Granted, he was supposed to be like the annoying kid, which he was, but his acting was spot on and everything. And so I'm thinking to myself, they couldn't have given this dude a bigger role other than him running at night and getting captured and stuff and being called Terrifying Teen. And I didn't even really know who he was because he had his hair in a ponytail. At first I thought it was a girl, but then I'm like, oh no, wait, that's a dude. And his complexion got a whole lot lighter and everything. And I'm just kind of like, I guess they checked off their box for diversity when it came to the girl and came to him, because it's kind of like this dude has like the tiniest role in the entire movie. And it's kind of like, the dude was in Are You Afraid of the Dark? Now he's in this. He should have had a more prominent role in this thing than what he was given. And it's quite a shame because, like I said, his acting was spot on in Are You Afraid of the Dark? So it does frustrate me. And not only does he not have any lines in the movie, but then they killed the dude off and severed his head. Like, my God, really? Really? The first person to die, it happens to be a person of color. I thought we was past this crap in horror movies, killing off the person of color first. Ugh. Another thing I don't like in the movie is Rusty. I'm sorry, he's too stinking comedic and coming off way too cheesy. Look, I like Goosebumps, alright? The old one from the 90s. Yes, it had a cheese factor to it, but that was the 90s. 90s was very cheesy. And, now that so many years have passed and like things are getting more mature and elevated, we don't need a comedic character like this. I wish they would have kept it more serious. He could have just been like, still keep him crazy, just not comedic crazy, I'm sorry, but the Rusty character just weighs the entire movie down for me. Like, once his character just appeared, I just didn't care no more. Like, and I get why they added him. They couldn't have this too dark. Because, R.L. Stine stuff is mostly for kids and teens. But no, this was just too much. This just reminded me of, like, wacky MCU humor and everything, and it's just kind of like, no, this took me completely out of the movie. And this is like he appears 30 minutes into the movie. So for the first 30 minutes, it's pretty good. And you know, it's like not so much slow pace, but like it's world building, it's moving at a leisurely pace and everything. And it's just kind of like, you know, you're expecting it to keep amping up, getting like, you know, more juicy to like the much more darker stuff. And then he just completely yacked it up. Now, one thing I'm mixed about is the color of like the movie. It has this high hue to it. And in some shots, it's so beautiful and gorgeous. But then in other shots, it's like you need it to be more dreary and gritty looking and moody, dark looking. And that bright color just doesn't really do it for me because it pops too much. And when scenes start to get kind of creepy and scary, you need to be dreary looking, you know, and not so brightly colored. It's clearly set in the present date, with Becca saying that 2003 was so ancient, long time ago. Yet all the clothes and the technology looks like it came from like the early 2000s and stuff, and a little bit in the 90s. Because like Palmer has a really old-fashioned phone. Rusty has an old flip phone from the early 2000s. Some of the clothes look like it's from like, ooh, late 90s or something. And then, what's his name? Sam is wearing a hat with Mr. Owl. A lot, and it says like, how many licks can you get before you get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? And I'm just like, that's like the 80s and everything. So I don't understand why they having all these different period of like clothes and technology and stuff. Even the old video game controller looks outdated and stuff. And you know something I've noticed about that, and there's no shade, like I promise to God I ain't throwing no shade, but I've noticed that a couple of LGBT creators, like showrunners and directors and stuff, they tend to do that a lot. Like it's set in the modern day, but technology and clothes come back from like the older days. There's at least four of them that I know of from movies and TV shows I've seen that always do that. The guy from Riverdale, the dude from Jawbreakers, what's his face? The guy who made Superman Returns, and somebody else. I can't think of their name right now. Oh no, wait, that Sabrina show was also created by the dude from Riverdale. So maybe there's like three or maybe four. But now this person would be like the fourth. Now there's one thing that confuses me just a tiny bit. And that is if it's the sheriff who told Palmer to do what he did all those years ago, do the ages like really match up? Like think about it. The cop dude would have to be a really young person. And so like he would have to been like, I don't know, maybe like 18, 19, 20, his 20, something like that. And he was still like a cop. And so when he did all that, what's his name? Rusty was a bit like older. I think him and Rusty look about the same age. But in the flashback, which is done in animation, the cop dude looked older and he still looked like a cop. So, like, he would have to be around the same age as, like, you know, Rusty and everything. Knocked him out. Palmer and everything gave him the book and talking about this is a miracle, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at the cops, like, child, like she's clearly like a teenager, like either in middle school or just starting off in high school, but most likely in middle school. Like she looks like she's around 13 or 12 or something like that. And I don't know, something's just not adding up to like the ages and everything. Like because the cop and Rusty look like they're about in their 40s and stuff. And not to mention, if this is constantly happening and only the kids remember, why aren't there more kids in like the movie being like, yeah, this happened. We need to like band together, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? So there's just something that kind of is off when it comes to the ages and everything. Because, I don't know, because Rusty said his sister was like 11 or something like that. And I just don't know. That's just like it's weird. Something's not adding up. Plus, also, why didn't people just go to the grocery store like Rusty did and get their groceries? So this movie's pretty decent. Like it's a pretty good movie. It's kind of like a popcorn flick type thing. It's something that like maybe a teen or an older kid will watch. It's not too scary, but you know, it does have that severed head and a couple of curse words here and there to let you know it is for a mature audience, but it's not like overly like scary or like creepy. I think the television show did a way better job in terms of being like freaky and creepy and a little scary and everything. The only problem with the television show is that there was really no action. There was really no chase sequence, no nothing like that. But the television show had a very eerie, creepy feel to it. A major creepy vibe. Like just the darkness, it was always in it kind of had like a little bit of a grayish filter kind of thing to it, like a muted like coloration to it. They filmed it at night sometimes, and it just had more of this, you know, real like, okay, we're here to like not scare you, but at least freak you out a little bit. Whereas the movie with the bright colors and the lighting and the silliness and everything, it's just your typical like R.L. Stine, like direct to DVD type movie type thing, like Ghostly Mostly or something like that, you know? Like it's not too creepy, it's not too scary, it has that maturity to it, but they just don't want to fully go there, which is odd because this is a Tubi movie. Most adults are gonna watch like something on Tubi, and remember this was 14 years ago, so the teenagers that watched this all those years ago are now adults and everything. So I don't know why they tried to make it sillier for like little kids. Like, if they were to take out the humor, give it more of a muted tone, and hype up the action a bit more, I think this could have been a really good, solid thing, similar to that of the Fear Street movies. But sadly, it is not. Gosh. I can't even really compare this to the Goosebump movies, because even the Goosebump movies had more going on for them. It's a nice attempt, but like it just needed more. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the girl literally fights the monster off with a slingshot. How much more kiddie can you get? It's just weird that like, I don't know, like R.L. Stine shows can be a bit more creepier and scarier than his movies. Like they don't never make no sense. Like for real, it really doesn't. Like other than the Fear Street movies, which are top notch in my opinion, it's just something about whenever they make a movie based on his properties, they just never seem scary. That wasn't that spooky. Alright, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.